Okay, security policies. They are probably one of the easiest topics that we're going to get into, but they are probably one of the most complex things that you've got to think about. And as you get into your next semester, you will have to start thinking about these on a much bigger scale. So what we're going to do today is basically just set up some rules for our Windows machine. The rules that we're going to be looking at are password rules. By default, Windows does not care if you put a password at all. If you do put a password, it doesn't care if your password is Apple or just the letter A. It does not care at all. So we're going to shear that up just a little bit and make it so that Windows cares at least the minimum amount about your password and what you set it to and how you're dealing with it. So the cool thing about this, like I said a second ago, is that these security policies are super easy to configure, but you do have to think about them a little bit. So turning them on is quite literally just turning it from disabled to enable, but thinking about the implication of what it is that you're doing, that is the thing that will give you a little bit of pause. So in your Windows VM, open up, just type in security policy. You'll find the local security policy application, or snap-in. This is an MMC snap-in, turns out. So you can also get to it by going to computer management. And you should be able to... Oh, you can't do it like this anymore. Oh no, it's not computer management. You go to MMC. That's right. And you got to add your own. There it is. So you don't need to know this. You just go through local security policy. See, and then I haven't done this in like forever. You know, this is what there it is. Add, remove, snap in. File, add, remove, snap in. And then you should find your security policy, security configuration. There we go. I think that's it. We'll see if it's group policy. Yeah, it might just be the group policy one. Local computer policy, I think that might be it. Yeah, no, it's got to be this one. So anyway, you can get to it a couple different ways. The easiest way to get to it is here, though. So just type in local security policy. You'll start dealing with, as I was mentioning, in next semester, you're going to start dealing with group policy and all of that. And this is more how it's going to look. You can get to the same exact thing. I think it might be under Windows settings. There it is, security settings. There. It just takes me a little while to remember because these things have entire breadcrumb trails to get down to the very specific things that you want. And right here, this is really what we're looking for. So you want account policies, local policies, and then local security policy. That's where it is. So when you get into the more server side, it's going to look a lot more like this. When you're dealing with just one machine at a time, it's going to look more like this. So be aware, depending on how you're configuring this, it's going to be a little bit different. But if you're just working a mom and pop shop, 3-4 computers, they don't have Active Directory, but you still want some of these policies, this is how you're going to do it, just local security policy. All right. So I said it was easy. It is. Everything that you need for this lab is under account policies. About half of it is in password policy. The other half is an account lockout policy. So let's look at what it is that we need. So in this lab, all we're really doing is locking the account after 4 invalid password attempts, right? So what does that mean? Well, all we really want is if someone types in their password wrong 4 times in a row, you just stop them from being able to attempt passwords anymore for a specific amount of time. So these particular policies actually work together. So the duration of that lockout should be 15 minutes. Then you have things like Windows passwords must be complex. Now, Windows has a very specific definition of what complexity is, and complexity to Windows is you must have 3 of the following: uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, symbols. Pick 3. You have to have 3. You don't have to have a capital letter. You can have lowercase symbols and numbers. That's fine. And you don't necessarily have to have symbols. You can have uppercase, lowercase, and numbers. That's something that would, no matter, in any case, as long as you pick 3, it will be complex. Then, password length. So they must be 8 characters in length. I think they just changed it, but for the longest time, in Windows' history, 14 was the maximum that you could require. The maximum, not the minimum, the maximum. And so as long as someone had a 14-character password, it would always pass any Windows security policy that you could ever actually employ. And that, I think, is, in this day and age, I think maybe 5-10 years ago, we would be able to get away with something like that. But in this day and age, I think you're really looking at passwords really need to be longer. That, I think, is probably the one thing that is going to save any particular password living out in the wild that isn't just straight up exposed, right? If someone is only able to get a hold of your hash, which is the way that passwords are stored in computers. So a hash is basically just, it looks like gibberish. Let me see. SHA-1. This is one of the more simple ones. Let's see if we can find an example of one. Yeah, here we go. So this would be a SHA-1 hash. So that's what this, if you were to type this in and then hash it with a SHA-1 algorithm with no salt or any kind of funkiness going on, it would turn out to be that. Well, the thing about that is that you can't go backwards. Well, okay, you can. With enough compute power, with enough money, with enough electricity, you can go backwards. But yeah, you're really getting into the point where it's not worth it to even try to go backwards. So the thing is, oh yeah, and they've got a really good example of it, and this is fantastic, right? So like, imagine this was your password, but you changed just one character in it. The hash is now absolutely totally different. Look at that. Not one single character in these 2 hashes in any particular spot is the same. So that is, I think, really important to know about hashes. Everybody's password gets turned into something that looks a little bit like this. It's not SHA-1. I forget what it is in Windows, but it's not really that important. But that's it, right? So whenever you type in your password, it gets changed to the hash and then compared with the hash that's stored on the computer itself. If that hash matches, then everything is good. There's a problem right now, especially with SHA-1, that there's this idea, and it happened with MD5 before it, and it happened to all the other hashing algorithms up to SHA-1, and including SHA-1, where now you have this thing called hash collision, which means that 2 different things. So you could have the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, and then something totally, totally different. And they would end up coming out to the same exact hash. Now, that is not necessarily inherently the death knell of any specific hashing algorithm. What is that once you know that you have a collision, you know that you can force it eventually. So what you end up trying to do is fool people. So let me show you something that, let me see. How about let's just go to Ubuntu. I cannot type. How about, let's do that. Let's go to the download. And anything that you download is going to give you, or should give you, there we go. Verify your, there it is. So here's the hash of this thing. So when I'm done downloading this thing, I should be able to go into a terminal and use the SHA-SUM, tell it what kind of hash I want, and then it'll check this particular file. Is this file, or does this file match this hash? So here's the thing. Once you get a hash collision, you can take this file and add stuff to it, like viruses. And then you can just keep adding data, like worthless data, nothing data, right? Just empty files to it until you eventually collide with this hash. So now the real Ubuntu ISO has this hash, and our modified Ubuntu image has that same exact hash. So if I'm able to give you this this tainted ISO, and then you run a SHA-SUM against it, and you still get the same correct checksum, the hash, then you're fooled. You will think that you have the proper ISO, and then you'll install it, and then you'll have viruses, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's getting way too terribly far into hashing and all that. We'll talk about that in the security class. But that's a problem of hashing. And long story short, Windows doesn't have that problem at the moment. They just revved their hashing algorithm in Windows 10 up one. So they shouldn't have that problem for a little while, but you will always have that problem. That problem will never go away. The more compute you have, as in CPU hardware and GPUs and things like that, you'll always be able to break hashing algorithms. Yeah, and it took Google, by the way, SHA-1. No mere mortal actually has broken SHA-1 that we know of. Google has broken SHA-1. But if you have a company that has tons and tons of compute and can do this and just throw this stuff around, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if that company has all the compute power in the world. If they are able to break the hashing algorithm, it doesn't matter. It's time to abandon it. So they did. And then there's SHA-2. So the length of these checksums are just insanely massive now. So anyway, long story short, that's how your password is stored, and so length is important. Yeah, that whole however long that was roundabout tangent to get back to the point that length is important. Because if someone is able to break your hash, well, then length doesn't matter. Your password could be 1 character, it could be 1,000,000 characters, and it doesn't matter. But if you're coming at it through a brute force style attack where someone is just guessing, right? You start at A, and then you go B, and then you go C. Or you have a dictionary list, right, with the common passwords, where I love you 7 is a common password, or monkey, which is weird. I don't know why that. And for years and years, monkey has been on the top 3. Don't know why. Why that animal? I don't know, man. Tiger King would be the good password, right? Anyway, you have these lists, right? And so if you're using these lists or you're just doing a straight brute force, length will win every single time. So make your passwords as long as you possibly can. It doesn't even matter if they're all lowercase. Complexity, throw it out the window. Doesn't matter. Make it long. Make it long, and that will be the number one thing that will keep you safe as far as brute forcing and dictionary attacking passwords go. And if you have no idea the back end, and you're just trying to, and I'm air quoting here, hack someone, you're just password guessing. So length is going to win every single time. Let me see, I missed that bit. Oh, Caesar Cipher is so cool. It's the very beginning of cryptography, and man, if they're interested in Caesar Cipher, you're gonna start finding notes that they write to each other or something like that in the Caesar Cipher. But the funny thing about that is that there's so much involved in that, so much math and forethought that, oh man, yep, that's fantastic. All right, so let's get to the meat of this, and it'll take a whole minute. So, password policy, right? So we want Windows passwords to be complex. What do? You come down here and find the policy that matches that. Password must meet complexity requirements. Double-click on it and look at that. There's nothing to do except turn it on or off. Done. If you are still confused about what exactly it is, or you want a reminder, by the way, guys, this is why I don't have notes. Because anything I could write in my notes would be, at best, just as good as what this is. And I know that it's not going to be at best. It's going to be a mediocre version of this. And why would I do that when I could when it's just right here? when you're going to deal with that particular thing, everything that you would need to know about it is right here anyway. So that's it. So turn it on here. Verify that you are doing what you expect to be doing with this particular policy right here. And then it gives you a little bit more information, right? Like default, it's on domain controllers, not on standalone servers. So once you turn Active Directory on, it's on. And then member computers follow their domain controller. So if you're in a domain, this is already on for you. If you are not, like our single VMs, you got to turn it on. All right, so by the way, this is it. Store password using reversible encryption. I guarantee if you are in a federal or state or city or local government kind of planning at all, and you turn this on, you're breaking some kind of law. So you got to be careful with these policies, right? There are some policies that you just never want to turn on, and this is one of those. Right? Like if I can reverse the encryption, what's the point of encryption? No. There is no point of encryption. It just absolutely not. Why bother? Anyway, so lock the password after 4 invalid password attempts. That's not on this page, but it'll be here. So count, let me see. Yep. Oh, here it is. Account lockout threshold. Go to the explain. It'll tell you how. Default is 0, and then you just say, I don't know, I'll give them 10 chances. If they can't get it in 10 chances, then, yeah. But notice it also said that thing that I just clicked OK on, which I expect one or two of you at least, it's going to make me sad if that number's any higher, just click OK on that and don't even think about what they're doing, right? That happens a lot. You're an admin now. You don't get to do that. But what that window said was there are two policies that are affected by the account lockout threshold. And those two policies are account lockout duration and reset account lockout counter after. So it, by default, set them to 30 minutes and 30 minutes. So basically what that means is after 10 invalid login attempts, you are going to get a 30-minute lockout. It's going to be 30 minutes. And then reset account lockout counter after 30 minutes. So since these match, if you attempt your password again during that 30-minute lockout, it will reset the 30 minutes. Yeah, and I feel like it's just being mean at this point. But you have to deal with both of these things. So if you bring the account lockout duration further down, you're going to end up affecting the other. One affects the other at least a little bit. So when you do that, the other one will change to 25. Notice, change to 25, right? Because your lockout counter can't be more than the account lockout duration, right? If it is, then you run into the situation where someone's able to, they're not locked out anymore. It's been 25 minutes, but if you had this set to 40 minutes or something like that, it would lock them out again because the account lockout counter hasn't reset, but your lockout is over. So usually the lockout is not very long, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. But remember that when you deal with one, the other one's going to follow in some way. Now, you can make this shorter, and it won't affect the other. Because remember, what you're trying to do here is prevent people from just hammering away at passwords. Because eventually you'll lock out. And the more you attempt, the longer that lockout goes. Again and again and again. So if every 5 minutes, if less than 5 minutes you try it again, that 25 minutes is going to reset. But 10 invalid login attempts is a lot of attempts. So if you don't get it right in that time, you better be calling me anyway, because, I'm going to have to reset your password, because obviously 8 times, you don't know. You have no idea what your password is, and you're just guessing at this point, and I can't tell you from a hacker. So, yeah, stop. Just call. So 10 is probably too many. 3 is pretty normal. 5 is pretty normal. So, just don't be mean to your users. Remember, they're people too. They need coffee to wake up and all that kind of thing. So they're gonna fat finger their passwords. I don't know, around 5-ish. Around 5-ish is pretty good, I guess. Anyway, so there's some other things. Enforce password history. Do you want to remember passwords? So like, if you set a password and then you force the password change in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever, do you want them to be able to use their last password? If you do, you can leave this at 0. If you don't, you can set it to 1. And that way they'll have to have 2 passwords to go back and forth with, right? Because that's exactly what's going to happen. No one's going to come up with a new password every single time if you only require them to not have the previous password, right? People are going to get 2 passwords, and they are going to rotate between them. And if you do it 2, they're going to get 3 passwords, and they're going to rotate between them. You have to remember that these policies will affect the laziest person in the company. Everybody else, if you're trying to do it to be true to form and actually be as secure as possible, then you're going to have a new password every single time. Yeah, just remember, there's going to be someone that's going to butt up against that policy, and whatever the policy is, that's what they're going to do. And if you say that it remembers 2 passwords and they're going to have 3, that's it. The bare minimum. Just remember that when you're setting policies moving forward. Anyway, maximum password age. This is going to be how old your password can be before you have to change it. I don't know where 42 came from, but 42, maybe it's the answer to everything. Maybe that's why it's that way. But, I mean, this is going to be when you need to change your password. I'm a proponent of don't do it ever. Just make your password stupidly long. But Windows will not let you do that, so you have to expire passwords eventually. So 90 days is a pretty good number. I would go so far as to say just give them 6 months. Was that 180 days? Give them 180 days. Let them change it one time. 2 times, I guess, at the end of the year. 2 times a year. But just make it long. Let me see. Length. Did they up it? I think they upped it. Yeah, to 20 now. So I wouldn't force 20, but I would force 16. Right? All you have to remember is and in this case, right, I would not enforce complexity. So it could be anything. You could make your password anything, right? And as long as you're not one of those people that answer those stupid questionnaires on Facebook and then post out those answers to everybody, right? Like it's like, hey, to find out what kind of French toast you are, tell me what was the very first car that you owned? What was your very first dog's name? Hey, what's your mother's maiden name? Hey, what's your social security number? Don't answer those. Those are absolutely meant to extract information out of you, and you're able to use that information to start guessing passwords, right? If you've ever been the guy that's had to shrug and be like, well, I don't know how I got hacked. It's like that. You got duped somehow. Because, no, unless your password's like 4 characters long, in which case, well, it didn't take much, did it? So, anyway, just make your passwords long. And so I wouldn't enforce complexity on this, but I would enforce 16 password character length. And then I would only have, if we needed a password expiry policy, I would make it 180 days or something like that. Something really, really long. I want to make it easy for people to be secure. That's your job, as if you decide to be in security at all. Your job is to make it easy for people to make your life easy. And as a security person, your life is revolving around audits and policy and making sure people are doing the right things as far as security hygiene goes, right? And so if you just make it dead easy, do you need an exclamation point or an uppercase or a lowercase or a number? No. I don't care what you put in there. Just put something in there. But it just has to be 16 characters long. You don't got to think about it. And it could be, the answers to those questions for all it's worth. The first make of your car, your dog's name, and all that stuff, right? It could be that. That's fine. Throw a capital in there just for good measure if you want to. That would make me happy. But, you don't have to. You don't have to. 16 characters is exponentially long. And to finish this out, I don't want to answer every single question for you, I guess. But here's why I say that. So let's say here's just some random password, right? That's 8 characters. This would pass the Windows complexity test. If someone were able to steal my hash, this thing that we were talking about that I got long-winded about before, right? That's how long it would take to crack that password. Well, I mean, assuming they had decent hardware, right? Like, someone that has a computer, that has a desktop, that also plays video games, give or take. Give or take. I'll even give you the benefit of the doubt and double that. Say they have a mediocre video card. 3 hours. Take them 3 hours. Less than a day. You know what? Just give them a whole day. And they'll have your password. Right? That's not good. That's not good at all. But let's swap that out with this is my super. Let's just stop at 16, right? There it is. That's how long it would take with that same exact hardware. Let's even get rid of the T. Let's not even do that. There you go. This is Google, by the way. That's how long it would take them with all of the compute that they have. All lowercase. Nothing particularly secure in that password. But, I mean, what I was going to do was super cool password, in which case, yeah. Right? That's the deal. Make it unique to you, though. Right? Don't go around using that password. That password's recorded now and on the internet forever, so don't. But, you know, something unique to you. But do you see how easy it is to get past 16? This is why that's my recommendation. I mean, I would say 20, to be honest, if everybody could come up with a cool phrase like that. Yeah, it shouldn't be a password. It should be a passphrase. And you can spell it and deal with it however you want. Anyway, centuries upon centuries upon centuries is what you get when you just get long. And that closes up a massive security hole, which is password guessing. Anyhow, so go through those 4 policies. Deal with them. Turn them on. Set them the way that I'm asking. And take a screenshot of each individual policy. So if it's complexity, I just want to see that complexity is on, right? So I'm looking for this exact screenshot. It is enabled. Click OK, and you're done. Now, the other 3, set them the way that I'm asking, right? 4 invalid attempts, 15-minute lockout, 8 character length. The end. That's all you got to do this week. That should take you all of 10 minutes. 15 if you're thinking about it really, really good. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Cool. Well, I'll stop her there.